There are many tools in AutoCAD. Before we can use them, we must know where they are or how to get to them. At first, you'll need to hunt for tools that you want to use. That's okay. But in no time, you will learn where everything is, especially the tools that you use all the time. In fact, your muscles will remember exactly where they need to move to get the mouse to get to your commands. The main form of input in AutoCAD is the mouse. A typical mouse has 3 buttons. When you move the mouse, it moves the cursor. Many users will take advantage of a 5-button mouse. It's all up to you, of course, but all you have to have is your standard 2-button mouse with a scroll wheel, making it a 3-button mouse. Each one of these buttons has a specific function. Button number 1 is the left-click button. It's your main form of input. You click this button to select objects. Now, the right-click button can be set to several different functions. Out of the box, a right-click will bring up a shortcut window. So if I right-click right now, I get this shortcut window. It has a lot of different options to it. Left-click starts my selection window. Now, these are all very handy and useful. Many users, though, prefer to have the right-click function as the enter key. This is my preference. Actually, I use a sort of hybrid setting. I'll show you how to do this and how to make these changes. So if you want to customize your right-click functions on your mouse, you don't have to, but you can. To do this, you'll need to get to your options window. Now, to get to the options window, come up to this big red A right up here in the application menu. That's what this is called. Now, your options are down here at the bottom. It's that button called options. They're easy to miss, but they're there. Left click on it. This will bring up the options window, and this window has several different tabs. This is where you go to a lot of different settings for AutoCAD. It'll change how different things function, how you interact with the program, how things will be visually displayed. We want to go to the User Preferences tab right here. I'll come to this top left corner. This is the right-click customization. This is where you customize your mouse right-click settings. This is the default out-of-the-box setting. Right now, when you right-click on your mouse, a shortcut menu will open up. Now, there are several advantages to having this available. It'll put several commands near your mouse, making it very easy to get to them while you're working. Many users have their right-click act like the enter key. This is also very useful and time-saving. So when you press the spacebar or the enter key, it will execute the command you just used. It will also act like the enter key does when typing in text. So you can have both options, and it's a big time saver to have that available to you as a right-click function. So let's work with these settings. Let's look at the turn on time-sensitive right-click. Now, this gives you a hybrid setting, and this is the one I personally use, and it does both of these. Now, if I click this and turn it on, and when I right-click on my mouse, it will act like an enter key. But if I right-click and hold for 250 milliseconds, it will bring up my shortcut windows, just like it does out of the box. I like this because I get the best of both worlds. And this is the way I'm going to work throughout the rest of this video. So I click Apply and Close, and click OK. Clicking OK is the same as clicking the Apply and then clicking OK. So now when I right-click, it acts like the enter key. And the enter key will bring up the last command that you've just used if you aren't already in a command. Now, if I right-click and hold, it brings up my shortcut key. So I get both functionalities out of the same button. I like to do that. As you see, moving the mouse moves your crosshairs in the drawing. Using the scroll wheel will move the drawing area. So I can zoom in and zoom out just by scrolling it. Now, you aren't shrinking or enlarging your drawing. You're just zooming in and zooming out. This is a very handy tool, and this is one of the biggest tools that you're going to use to navigate through your drawing. There was a time in AutoCAD when you couldn't zoom in real time like this. It was terrible, trust me. So clicking and holding the scroll wheel, though, will start the pan command. So if I click it and hold it, you see the little hand come up on the screen, and I can drag it back and forth, up and down, or in circles, whatever I need to do. So using these two functions of the scroll wheel allows you to maneuver inside your drawing, and you can get to anywhere you need to just with the scroll wheel. One other thing you can do with the scroll wheel is to double click the scroll wheel button. This will perform what's called a zoom extents. If I double click it, it zooms all the way out so that you can see your work. So if I draw a rectangle really small on my screen, I can zoom in and out just by scrolling the wheel. If I click and hold the scroll wheel, I get the pan command, so I can pan around. And then if I double click, it'll zoom all the way in or it'll zoom all the way out, whatever it needs to do a zoom extent. So it zooms you to the extents of your drawing. So if I zoom out like this, double click, it zooms me in. If I'm zoomed in and I double click, it'll zoom me out. So that's a very handy tool. In between those three things, zooming by scrolling, panning around, and then the double click, I can navigate my entire drawing that way. Now your crosshairs are a very important tool. They are your target. Where your mouse goes, the crosshairs go. And where your crosshairs are is where your new lines, new text, and other objects will be placed in your drawing. I prefer to have my crosshairs fill the screen. I do this so that I can use them as a guideline when I draw. Now to change this, but only if you want to again, because you don't have to. Open up the options window again. You can just type in OP, it makes it real easy to get to. Press the Enter key, and this will bring up your options window. Now you want to go to the Display tab here on the left. This tab will set up a lot of the display functions on your AutoCAD instance. I want to go to the crosshair size right here on the bottom towards the right. Right now they're set to 5. Now this determines the size of the crosshairs as a percentage of the screen size, as it says here in the tooltip. So my crosshairs right now will be at 5% of the total screen. So if I click this slider and drag it all the way across, now they will be 100% the size of the screen. I can drag it all the way down to the left and they'll only be 1%. So they'll be really small, or they'll be really big, or you can have them at 50%. Now you can also click in this box and type in the number that you want. So if I click OK, you see my crosshairs are a lot bigger now. I know a lot of people will set them up about this size. But if I go back into the options, click in my crosshairs size box, type in 100, and click OK, and now my crosshairs go all the way up and down and all the way to the left and to the right. Now your crosshairs consist of 3 major items: your vertical line, your horizontal line, and that little box in the middle is called the pick box. Now these 3 items are there for visual reference. The 2 lines are perfectly straight and they intersect at the center of this pick box. Now this point of intersection is the actual point where you will select objects or insert new objects. And also, by the way, if you don't like this background color, you can always change that. And don't worry about AutoCAD, because almost everything in AutoCAD can be changed or set or customized. Anyway, the main drawing area in AutoCAD is this large black field. This is where your drawing objects will go. There are 2 main spaces that you're going to draw in: model space and paper space. Model space is where your drawing objects go, and paper space is where your annotation and sheet objects go. Sort of like a title block or a drawing border. We'll cover those 2 spaces in greater detail in another section. Another area that I want to mention before we go is the Info Center. This is where you can go for help. That's in this top right area up here in this top bar. Click on this arrow, you can see some other things here, and we'll talk more about these later on. You can log into your Autodesk 360 account. You can get to help by clicking on the little question mark there and get to different areas there that will help you out. And when you move your crosshairs off of the drawing area and up into the ribbon, it turns into an arrow, and that is where you point and click to select your commands. Getting to important program functions in AutoCAD is done through the application menu, also known by me as the big red A. Now, it doesn't look as much as an A as it used to in past releases, but it's still there. Now, it's sometimes difficult for people to tell that that is an actual button that you need to click, but it is. The application menu, if you just left click on it, is where you go to open up files, save files, print files, and manage some of the settings in AutoCAD. Now, the new Open, Save, and Save As options are fairly self-explanatory. If you want a new file, you can click on New. That'll bring up a list of your template files, select the one that you want, and click Open, and now you have a second file open. Go back to the application menu, click on the Open button, and now you can open up a drawing, open something from the cloud, a sheet set, other files. If you just click on the Open button here, it will go to your browser and you find a file, open it up, and you'll have access to it, whatever it might be. Click on the application menu again, click Save to save your drawing, click Save As to define the file name and the location of where your file will be saved. Now, as you can see here, the New, the Open, and the Save As have these little arrows here. These are different options. Now, these options mean that if you move your mouse over to the right window, you pick on one of these other options, and it will give you a little bit more detail or something else, an extra tool that you can use. If I click on open, or if I go to this arrow, I can open up a drawing. Again, open a drawing from the cloud, open up a sheet set, etc. Most of these options, though, are available to you if you just click the regular open button and you come down over here to the open button and you have this little arrow. You can open up some other things. Open up just part of the view, open it up as read only, or if you change down to your file type, it will give you some other options as well. But typically all you're going to need to do is click on the application menu, click on New, Open, Save, or Save As. Now there are many ways to use your drawing. One way is to print it out, which we will cover extensively later on in a later chapter. Now, you might be surprised though about how difficult it can be to actually print a drawing. Now the export command that you can see here in the application menu right here is meant to put your AutoCAD file into some sort of digital format, like a PDF file that you can email to a client or vendor. And you have a lot of different options available to you. DWF, DWFX, 3D DWF, PDF, DGN, FBX, or other formats. Now, some of these lists here might be really long, and you can see here that there are little bitty arrows at the top and at the bottom. Put your mouse over there and it will scroll up or down accordingly. So that's the export. If we go to publish or print, these are your printing tools. These will allow you to take your drawing and put it onto paper. And we'll go over those in a lot more detail later on. The drawing utilities feature has many tools in it. We'll cover a lot of these individually more extensively in later chapters, but this is where you go to set your drawing properties, set your units, audit the file, check it for digital errors, things like that. Check the status, purge your drawing to clean it up a little bit. Recover in case it somehow crashes on you, which it will happen. So a lot of times AutoCAD will crash on you while you're working on it for a lot of different reasons. If you open up the Drawing Recovery Manager, then that will bring up all the files that you had opened when AutoCAD crashed so that you can easily get back and restart your drawing session. Now the close button here should be rather self-explanatory. This close button will shut down AutoCAD. If you haven't saved your files, it will ask you if you want to, so you don't have to worry too much about it. Say, well, have I saved it or have I not saved it? So if you hit the close button and AutoCAD automatically closes, that means that you have saved and you haven't made any other changes in your drawing since then. One last feature for the application menu that I want to show you, that if you want to use a command but you can't find it, so you'll find this to be extremely useful for you, especially when you first start off using AutoCAD. Open up the application menu, go into this top button right here and just start typing something in, the line command. So if I type in line, it'll bring up the command for me. Right here, I can click this and it will start the line command. It'll give me tooltips and it tells you here where it can be found. So if I click it, now I'm starting to draw a line. Next, I want to talk to you about the QAT, which is a QAT, which stands for the Quick Access Toolbar. It's right next to the application menu, and that consists of these buttons right here. A lot of these buttons you can find, like the Save As, Save Open, and New, are found right in the application menu. So it gives you quick access to some of these tools right away. So I can click less, I have to move my mouse less, and so I can get to them very quickly. Now you can customize this if you'd like, because we have on it right now out of the box, New, Open, Save, Save As, Print or Plot, Undo, Redo, and then we have more options. If I click on this arrow here, you can see all the commands that are here are turned on. They have a little check mark. Now, these are some of the other things that you can turn on if you'd like. You can turn on your workspace controls, match properties, batch plot, plot preview properties, etc. One thing that I like to turn on is the match properties. So I'll click here and now it turns it on. This is the new button here, and we'll talk about match properties later on. So that's the application menu and the quick access toolbar. Now, one other thing you can do with this quick access toolbar is get more commands. So if there's something that's not here, you can click on the more commands and you can find them and add them to it. Now you can also show the menu bar. So if you've used AutoCAD before and you've used the menu bar and you like it, you can get access to it right there. Or you can hide the menu bar. Or you can click the show below the ribbon. That puts the quick access toolbar down here. And so if you don't like quick access toolbar to be here because it kind of takes up more room, click show above the ribbon. So it puts it back up here, takes up less space, but yet you can still get to it quite easily. This is the way I prefer to use it. One of your main interface options to use to get to all of the commands in AutoCAD is the ribbon. Now the ribbon is this big giant toolbar here at the top of your screen. It's your main source of commands and drawing tools. It groups similar commands together inside tabs and then inside panels. It also groups the commands by workflow, meaning that the commands in a tab or a panel are often executed in a series. The ribbon is made up of tabs. Here we have the Home tab, the Insert tab, Annotate tab, and so on. You access the tools in a tab by left-clicking on the tab. The main tab is the Home tab. This is where most of your work is going to be done. This tab has several commands in it that are used regardless of your design industry or project. These commands are also amongst the most commonly used. Each tab has a panel. The panels contain the commands and tools that you're going to use. Panels, like the tabs, are grouped by similar commands. For example, the Draw panel here in the Home tab has the commands in it that you need to draw lines, polylines, arcs, circles. As you can see here, the line command, polyline, circle, arc, rectangle, center ellipses, and other items. If you look at the Annotation panel, you'll see here you can create dimensions, leaders, tables, and text. To switch between tabs, you click the tab that you want to work in. So click Insert. So then click on the Insert button to use the Insert command. If you aren't sure which command icon is for which command, just hover over it. As you probably have seen, this will pop up a balloon called a tooltip. And if you hold it there for a little bit longer, an expanded tooltip will show up, giving you more information about that command, tool, or setting. These are very handy, especially when you're first learning to use AutoCAD. The tooltips will give you the name of the command and a short description of it. If you want to learn more about the command, there is a link inside a lot of the tooltips to get you to the help screen. Or as you hover over any one of these tools, press the F1 key to bring up the help system for that specific command. Some of the panels collapse, meaning that they shrink so as to give you more room on your screen. If I go to the Home tab, you can see a lot of these here are shrunk down. The groups, utilities, clipboard, and view. As I hover over them, they will pop out and expand for us, showing us exactly what's in that panel. To activate a command, you simply go to the tab and then to the panel that you want, hover over the icon, and then left-click on it. Now, some of the commands, like the circle command, have fly-out icons. You can tell because there's a little arrow here. Arc has one, and then these commands have one as well for the rectangle, for the ellipse, and for hatching. So to access the flyouts, you just click the arrow and another window will pop up showing you the other options for that command. Now there are a lot of different ways to draw a circle, and these different commands in the flyout give you the ability to draw a circle in that way. Same way with an arc, or with a rectangle, or a polygon. Now, the rectangle and polygon aren't flyouts for that specific command, but they are flyouts for similar commands that you might want to use. Now, this is done because you don't always need the polygon command, but yet you want it, and you want to be able to use it, and so you can get to it quickly this way, and it saves them some room. Now, some of the panels have style managers. For example, if I go to the Annotate tab and I go to the text, or the dimensions, or the leaders, you'll see this little diagonal arrow in the bottom right-hand corner. This is the style manager for your text. This is the style manager for your dimensions, for your leaders, for your tables. So if I left-click on that, it will open up the text style manager. Now there is another type of tab that will show up in the ribbon from time to time, and they are called contextual tabs. These tabs are not accessible at the moment, but they will show up when a certain command is activated. These tabs will contain tools that you will not need or be able to use during your normal working conditions. But the contextual tabs have tools in it that you will need in special cases. One example is the Hatch tool. So if I go to the Home tab and I want to create a hatch, click on the Hatch command, and this will bring up the contextual tab for hatches. So as you can see, it pops up. It's kind of highlighted in blue right now, so it tells you, hey, this is where it is. Now I can go to one of these other tabs if I want to, and it's going to remain up here until I cancel out the command. This gives me all the tools and settings and options that I need to create a hatch. I can also manipulate the hatch as it's already started, changing some of the things in it if I'd like, or going on and creating a new one. Once you finish your command, that contextual tab will go away. As we come across these contextual ribbon tabs throughout the video, I'll make sure to point them out to you. Now there are two main methods of interfacing with AutoCAD, the mouse and the keyboard. Many users will use the mouse almost exclusively, using the keyboard only when it is unavoidable. However, I have found in my years that the key to efficiency in working in AutoCAD is to take advantage of as many tools as you possibly can. That includes the keyboard. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a gray area with a couple of lines. This is called the command line. That's right here. Here you can type in any command into AutoCAD. In this video series, I will often say type on the command line or type in the command. This is where you would type it in. Not only can you execute commands through the command line, but AutoCAD will give you feedback through that area. Now, many commands have options to them as well. Now, those options will appear on the command line. For example, the circle command. So I type in the word circle to start the command, and then I press enter. Now I get a couple of instructions on here. It's telling me to specify the center point for the circle. That means I'm starting the circle. Also, you'll see here, and they're highlighted in gray and they're drawn in blue. I have a 3P, 2P, a TTR, and then that's it. Now you can see as I move in the command line, they're highlighted. Now it used to be where you had to just manually type these commands in, but now I can click on them in the command line. Now these are different options. You'll see the little bracket and then these highlighted blue text areas closed by the bracket. These are options. These are the options that I'm talking about. Now, as I'm typing in here, did you notice by my crosshairs, there's this area where the text showed up. If I press escape to get out of the command and I start typing in circle again, you'll see it shows up right by my crosshairs. Well, this is called a dynamic input tool. This is a visual aid. It's intended to help the drafter's efficiency. It puts the command line at your crosshairs where you're already looking at anyway to do your drawing with. It does this so that you don't have to keep moving your eyes from the crosshair to the command line and back again. Now, it may not sound like much, but this can help prevent some headaches too. And it does save some time. If I have to look from my crosshairs to my command line, back up to my crosshairs every time I do a command, that's, half a second a time, but I'm doing, multiple commands, 10, 20 commands a minute possibly. That adds up. So it can save you some time. And trust me, it does ease up on the eye strain only looking in one spot, or at least limiting the amount of traveling your eyes have to do on the screen. Also, if you're good at typing, you can type in the word circle without moving your eyes to look at your keys. So imagine if you have to look at the crosshair to start the circle to know where you're at, look at the command line, look at the keys, look at the command line, look at the crosshairs. That's a lot of looking. So dynamic input can be very helpful for you. Press escape to get out of there and show you another way here that you can enter commands on the command line, and that's through keyboard shortcuts. All commands can be executed by typing on the command line, but most commands have a keyboard shortcut. For example, circle. If I type in the word circle, you say, okay, that's not too bad, but this is even better. If I just type in the letter C, press enter, I'm starting the circle command. That's even shorter. Yeah, it's only a few keystrokes, but again, if I'm drawing 100 circles and it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keystrokes times 100, that's 600 keystrokes. Or I just type in the letter C, that's 100 keystrokes. So that's a huge reduction in time and in use, so it increases your efficiency quite a bit. So keep that in mind. So here are a few more tips that I want to show you about the command line. If I press the F2 button, that brings up the command line. This will allow you to see what you've been doing. Press F2 and it goes away again. And here's another one. With your dynamic input turned on, press the C button, and you'll see here that it is automatically populating different commands that start with the letter C. Now, AutoCAD has become very smart this way. It will show you these commands and it will learn your commands. Right now there are a lot of different choices. But if I use the copy command, typing CO, it will automatically eventually start putting copy at the top of my list and not circle. So that's something that can be very useful for you. And as you type in the letter C, if I say, oh, I want change properties, or I want the combine command or copy, I can come through here and left click it to start that command. I don't have to keep typing. So if you have something like extract data or the data extraction command, I can start typing that in. Also, you notice the command is data extraction, and I typed in EXTRA like for extraction. Well, it's smart enough to know that's part of the command name. So if you don't know what a command is, but you kind of have a good idea, you can start typing that in and it will automatically bring that command up for you in that list, which is really good. For my last tip in this section, I'm going to show you this really cool trick with your arrow keys. If you press them up or down, it will scroll through your last commands. Now this is very handy if you're using the same couple of commands over and over again, especially if they're difficult to get to. You just push the up arrow and it will go up the list. Push the down arrow and it will go down the list. So when you want to get to one of those, you find it where it is here in the list. Then press enter and it starts that command. Now in this case, it was my rectangle command. Now the real key to AutoCAD efficiency is doing less work. The less you have to do, the quicker you get done. Type less, draw more, finish the project. While the main form of interfacing with AutoCAD is through the ribbon and the command line, there are other methods of executing commands in AutoCAD. Two of them that we're going to look at now are the menu bar and toolbars. Out of the box, these two forms of input are turned off. Before AutoCAD 2009, they were the main forms of user input, but they were replaced by the ribbon. The ribbon keeps everything in one central place, where toolbars can and typically are all spread out all over your screen. Now, if you've used AutoCAD in the past, then you're very familiar with both of these, toolbars and the menu bar. And they work just fine, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with using them if you prefer to use them. Go right ahead and do that, that's fine. There's no real right or wrong way to interface or to use AutoCAD. There are some more ideal situations, of course, but there are definitely ways that you are familiar with, and that's probably what you should use. Now, if you haven't used them before, meaning the toolbars and the menu bar, I suggest that you just stick with the ribbon. Now, the menu bar is a very handy interface tool, I will admit that, and it takes up very little space. It's a bar that comes across the top of your screen that has pull-down menus where the commands are located. Many programs that you've used in the past have an interface like this. Now, it's very easy to turn off and on. You use the setting called menu bar. Just type it in, all one word, menu bar, press enter. If it's set to 0 like it is now, then it won't show up. But if it's set to 1, that turns it on. And you can see here it pops in right here at the top, and the majority of your commands are here. If you need to get to them, you just click on it, like in this case it's File, and this is very similar to the application bar, and I can get to New and Open, Close, Save, etc. Just click somewhere else on your screen or press Escape to get out of it. Now if I want to edit, click the Edit button, there's an Undo, Cut, Copy, Paste, etc. Now once I've clicked on one of these menu bar items, I can just kind of move back and forth and get to the different commands. The menu bar is very similar to the ribbon, but instead of tabs, there are these menus. All of your commands can be found in the appropriate menu. And if you're new to the ribbon, but familiar with the menu bar, then feel free to turn it on. But again, if you're new to AutoCAD, I say that you stay away from the menu bar and use the ribbon and the application, quick access toolbar, keyboard, and mouse instead. Now, if you want to get to toolbars, you can just type in the command -toolbar. Now, that dash is important. If you leave it out, it'll get you to a different version of the toolbar command. But this is the one we want. Type in -toolbar, press return. Now, if you know the name of the toolbar, you can just type it in. Right now, a real easy one to use is the draw toolbar. So I'm using that as an example. Just type in the name draw, D-R-A-W, press return. And you get this option to show it, hide it, make it go left, right, top, bottom, or just have it be a floating toolbar. Right now, I just wanted to show it. So you pick on show and it pops up over here. Now this is really nice because it has a lot of your draw commands that you're going to find in the draw panel. Now you're going to find out once you start using toolbars that the toolbar is extremely similar to a panel. So everything in this draw panel can probably be found in this draw toolbar. Cool thing about toolbars is that you can left click on this top part here and drag it around and make it to be a floating toolbar. So you can reposition it as you'd like. You can drop it in right here. There it is. You can move it to the bottom. You can move it to the right, wherever it needs to go. Now it works just the same as your ribbon panels. If you want to start the line command, just left click on the line icon for that command right here and start drawing your line. Now if you want to get to other toolbars, it's very easy. You can use that command that I showed you. Type in the name of the toolbar and it will pop up right on your screen. Now there's a problem. There are a lot of toolbars that come with AutoCAD. So if you want to find them, just right click on any open toolbar that you have on your screen. Now, this is the list right here. You can see that there are some scroll arrows. It's very long. Any of these that you want, just go through them, find the ones you want, and click on it. Let's say I want the Insert toolbar, so I click it. And again, I can reposition this toolbar wherever I'd like. Now, if I want to close it, I can click on the X in the top right corner. To give you an idea of how many toolbars there are, I'm going to type in All and then Show. As you see, there are a lot of toolbars available for you, and that's fine. Now, there is one reason I recommend not using toolbars. It's because there are a lot of them. They are not locked into any one position on your screen. Once you position them and save your workspace, they are going to stay there for you, so that's okay. Now, you can turn one off or on if you'd like, and then get rid of the ribbon so you can have a little bit different interface. If that's the way you're used to working, then that's fantastic. But if not, I suggest that you stick with the ribbon. AutoCAD has several ways to open files and to access them while you're working. In this section, we're going to look at File tabs. File tabs are found right here below the ribbon. Every open file will have a File tab. They look like the tabs from an old file folder that you would use in a filing cabinet, thus the name. They're very simple to use. Now, there is a tab displayed for every file that you have opened, as I said earlier, and you just click that tab of the file that you want to make current. So if I have a second file, let's just open something up. And open up something I have on my hard drive. And you can just open up another file, or you can just watch along. Okay, now you see here that I have two files, drawing number 1, and then this 3D seating file. To get to either one, I just click on the File tab that I want, and that will activate or make current that file. File tabs are a very nice visual display that give you quick access to your opened files. Now, the tabs will be displayed in the order that you open the files. Of course, you can drag and drop the tabs to change their order if you want. Just left click and drag it over. Now, if you have a bazillion files open and there isn't enough room to display all of them, the tabs will create an overflow menu at the right of the File tabs bar and provide easy access. So I'm going to kind of show you that real quick. I'm going to open up a whole bunch of files, and this will take a few seconds for it to open all these. But as you can see, the tabs are being displayed as the files are being opened. Now, once all of your files are opened up, you can get to any of them just by clicking on the appropriate tab. Now you can see this little arrow here on the far right. If I click on it, that will create a pull-down menu of all of my files that I have open. Now I just click on the one that I want to, and I can get back to it. So it's pretty easy and straightforward to use. Now, if a file is opened as read-only file, you can see here this file called Legs Finished has a little lock icon on here. That means I can't save the file. So that's a nice little feature to help you know that that is a read-only file. Now, sometimes you'll see an asterisk by a file, as in drawing 1. That means that the file has been modified but not saved yet. It's a nice little visual cue that I found very useful. When you pass the cursor over a file tab, preview images of your model and layout tabs are going to be displayed. So if you just click on any of those, you can go to that model space tab for that file, or you can go to your layout tab for that file. We'll talk more about paper space and layout and model tabs later on. Now, when you hover over one of these options, you get a plot or a publish option. You can do that for your model space tab or for a paper space tab. Now, that will allow you to print or publish that one drawing. You may have noticed this plus icon over here on the far right. This enables you to easily create new drawings automatically. So if you click it, it brings you to what's called the New tab. Now, the New tab is where you can get a lot of different information. Here you can go to recent documents. So if it's something you've had open recently, you can click on it and it will open. Or you can go to the Get Started section. Here, if you click, it will take you to your templates, and you can get to your different template files and you can start a new drawing from there. Here you can go to Open Files, open a sheet set, or get more templates online, or explore some sample files. So once you click that plus sign, you can start to create a new file. Click on the templates. I'm going to click acad.dwt and start a new drawing. Of course, if you want to close any of these files, just go to the tab, go to the little X on the right side of it and click it. If you've made some changes to the file, it'll ask you if you want to save the file first. So for example here, if I just zoom in or pan, even draw a line, now I've made some changes, and you'll notice a little asterisk is here. Now when I click on it to close, it'll say, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to save it? Say yes or no. I'm going to say no because I don't want to at this time. Now, if you go to the ribbon and you go to the View tab, you'll see a little button here in the interface panel called File Tabs. If you click it, it'll turn them off. If you click it again, it'll turn them back on. So if you want to use them or you don't want to use them, that's completely up to you. I'm going to go ahead and leave them on because when I work, I usually have multiple files open at one time and I need to navigate quickly between them. So I usually leave it on. But it's all completely up to you. If you need this little bit of drawing space back into your drawing area, that's perfectly fine. Now, in an earlier section, I showed you how to customize your mouse right-click to open a shortcut menu, or to use it as an enter key. I like to have these turned on in a hybrid mode where it uses the enter key and the shortcut key because they give me quick access to often used commands or tools right where I'm working. You don't have to hunt for them, or you don't have to type in the command line to get them. They're just there. So there are several different shortcut menus, and each one depends on your current activity or situation, for which one shows up. So as of right now, I don't have anything going on, meaning that I haven't started a command or selected an object. I'm just sitting here ready to get started. So right now, if I right-click and hold, I'll get the default shortcut menu. With this, I can repeat my last command. I can look at recent input. I can get to my clipboard by doing cut, copy, paste. I can isolate my objects, undo, pan, zoom, bring up steering wheels, action recorder, and some other options. Now let's say I have an object and I've selected that object and I right-click. This will give me a different shortcut menu. This is called the edit mode shortcut menu. It will give us commands like move, copy, rotate, and some others. So I can erase it, I can move it, I can get to a lot of these different editing commands very quickly. And I don't have to change my ribbon tab, I don't have to stop, enter in another command, I can get to all of it right here. Now I can select similar, I can deselect everything so I can change my selection, and I can do a lot of different things to it. So your shortcut menus are contextual, meaning different types of shortcut menus will pop up at different times. So if I start a command, like the line command, and now if I right-click, I get a set of different commands here. It's even a smaller set. So I can pan or zoom, I can get around, I can undo, I can get to my O snaps. And we'll talk about O snaps later on, but these O snaps or object snaps will help me to draw very specifically on my drawing. So this is a very useful tool that I might want to get to. Typically, right-clicking will give you an appropriate shortcut menu for what you're currently doing. So as you work with AutoCAD and need to do something with your command, your object, or whatever situation you're in, right-click. It could be a real time saver. Also, it will help you to learn the abilities of the commands that you're using. Now, everything in AutoCAD can be customized, even the right-click function. It used to be that the right-click was nothing more than an enter command. Now, you still have that option, but you can use either the enter or the shortcut version of the right-click. I've shown you how to do that in a previous section, but in case you skip that section, I want to show it to you here very quickly. So you want to get to your options. You type in OP, press return, and you go to the User Preferences tab. Now, there are a lot of different tabs on here, but we want the User Preferences tab. Then go to the right-click customization, and you can turn on the time-sensitive right-click by clicking on this little box here, putting a check in it. Now, if you want to work with this, all you have to do is right-click and hold, and you wait a few milliseconds, 250 of them to be exact, and then the shortcut menus will pop up. Otherwise, a quick right-click will just apply an enter key or a spacebar. They work the same way. Another form of interface in AutoCAD is called the pallets. Many managers and tools are in the form of a pallet. Now, these pallets have tools, commands, or other information in it that allow you to manipulate your objects or to add to your drawing. One pallet that I always use is the Property Manager pallet. To open it, press the Control key and the number 1 at the same time. This is your Properties palette. This palette shows you the properties of any selected object or objects. So if I select this line, it will tell me that I've selected a line, some general information, its color, layer, line type, etc., and its geometry. I can scroll up and down here, left click on this scroll bar and just move it up and down. Now if I want to close it, I just come up to this top part here and click on the X, or I press Control 1 at the same time. This is a great tool that you can use to alter objects with. I'll get into more detail later on. Now Control 2 will bring up the Design Center palette. This palette is a tool where you can get items from other drawings and move them into your drawing. You can browse to a file, select the type of item you need, then select that item. You click and hold that item, whatever it might be, and then you just simply drag it into your file. Control 3 will open up your Tool Palettes palette. This palette is full of blocks, hatch patterns, materials, and other commands. I can click on these and get to other tools, other commands, some blocks and things. I can just click, drag, and drop. And now it's put into my drawing. Pretty cool. Another useful palette that's a calculator. If you press Control and 8 at the same time, that will bring it up. Now palettes are really cool because you can drag them all around on your screen. You can stretch them to make them a little bigger or smaller, whatever the case might be. This calculator is just that. Now if I have it open and I've clicked on it, it's activated, I can just type in my commands as you would on a regular calculator and get your answers that way. So I can just type in my numbers like I normally would on my keyboard, or I can click on any of them here with your mouse and then just do your regular math. Now this is really nice because you may need to use some of these numbers inside AutoCAD and to put them into a note or anything like that, because you can now highlight these with the left click and drag, and then right click and copy it out. And then you can just paste it into an email, into some notes, or to anywhere else that you might want to put it in. Again, to close this, just click on the X. Now it might not look like it, but the command line is also a palette. It's right here. I can click it, drag it, stretch it out so that it's bigger, move it all around. I can even close it if I want to. When you want it to come back up, you can just press Control and 9 at the same time, and it'll come back to the same way that you had it last. Typically, all you really need is one line for your command line. Now, Control 0 is not a palette, but it's a drawing mode. It's called the clean screen mode. This mode gets rid of almost everything on your screen, giving you more screen real estate to draw with. So press Control and 0. And as you can see here, my drawing area is much bigger. So you can see here the Control 0, it just gets rid of most everything. Now you can continue to work as you normally would, zoom and pan with your mouse, type in your commands, all that you want to, whatever it is you need to do. Now your ribbon and all that stuff are just turned off. To get it all back, just press the Control 0 again. And that brings everything back to the way it was. There are some other palettes available, but their complexity goes a little bit beyond the scope of this video, so I only wanted to touch on the main ones that you're more likely to use 90% of the time. Palettes can be rearranged in your drawing area, though, as I kind of showed you earlier. They can be docked or locked into position, or they can just float around. They can hide themselves, or they can stay open. You can right-click on them, and I don't know if you're getting a theme yet, but right-clicking in AutoCAD is a big deal. You can get to a lot of different things. So you can look at them, you can right click on them. This will change some of your settings, like I said, to dock it or not. You can click on these buttons here to automatically hide it. You can left click here and you can change some of the transparency settings on it if you like. Normally I just leave it, but hiding them so that they automatically hide like this is a great way to save some screen space. So you always have access to it. You can still dock it if you want. Just right click on it and allow for docking, and it can show up. You can click and drag and make them smaller. So there are a lot of different manipulations that you have available for you on tool palettes. In previous sections, we've already discussed the value of inputting commands with a keyboard. Now, one key to efficiency in AutoCAD is to take advantage of keyboard shortcuts as well as the function keys. Now, the function keys act as toggles. They can turn certain drawing aids on and off. The two you will use the most often are the F3 and F8 keys. Now, the F3 key will toggle your running O-snaps on and off. If I have a rectangle drawn here, and let's say I want to draw a line, and I want to draw it right to the corner or the vertex of that line. Now, you see that little glyph there? It is a little peachish colored glyph. That's an endpoint O-snap, a running O-snap, an object snap. It snaps you right to it. I can do that automatically because I've pressed the F3 key and it's toggled my running O-snaps on. O-snaps are drawing tools that force AutoCAD to draw objects to very specific places on another drawing object. We're going to talk more about these later on, but in short, O-snaps allow you to make sure you draw a line to the endpoint of another line. Now, there are other things too, like drawing to the middle, to a center point, etc. You don't have to guess or measure these points. AutoCAD will automatically find them for you and snap right to it. So if I press the F3 key, you can see in the command line that it's telling me my O-snaps are off. See that little glyph? It's not there anymore. So I don't know exactly where I'm going to snap to. I won't automatically lock in to that endpoint. But if I press the F3 key, it turns my O-snaps on, and now boom, it locks me right into it. I can go to any of these endpoints and draw exactly to it. Now, the other one that you're going to use a lot is the F8 key. Now, this turns on and off your ortho mode. Now, this mode makes sure that you draw objects perfectly horizontal or vertical. So if I start my line command, pick anywhere on here, it doesn't matter. You can see I can draw this line at any angle that I want to. I'm free to do that. But if I press the F8 key, it locks in my line no matter where I put my mouse or the cursor. I just need to go left or right or up and down, above it. And it locks that line work in to being perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical. Now my O-snaps, if they're on, will override that, as you can see, and it will continue to draw things at an angle however I want to. Now the F1 key will turn your help window on or off. So as you see here, the F1 key will open up your help window. Now this gives you access to all the help files that can describe the different commands in AutoCAD. It's a great tool to find the commands you need or to get a better understanding on how they work. To close it, you can press the F1 button again or just close that with the red X button. Now the F2 button will open up your command line review box. F4 will toggle your 3D O-snaps on. They're just like regular O-snaps, but they're for 3D objects. F5 will toggle through an isometric planes for you. It'll help you to draw isometric drawings. We'll talk about those in another section, but that toggles through left, right, and top views. F6 will toggle your dynamic UCS off or on. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. F7 turns your grid off and on. The grid is a visual display. Again, we're talking about that in more detail in another section. It kind of acts like graph paper to help you draw. If you toggle snap mode on by pressing the F9 button, your crosshairs will snap to each point on your grid. Now this can help you create objects at very specific units. F10 turns your polar tracking on, while F11 turns O-snap tracking on and off. These tracking devices I just talked about will be explained better in other sections. Now the function keys turn on and off certain tools that allow you to draw more accurately. Make sure to watch the video pertaining to each of these tools for more in-depth description. In another video, we talked about entering commands on the command line. We mentioned the fact that there are command aliases or shortcuts. These are typically 1 to 2 keystroke long entries that will start a command. Most of them are made up of the first letter or two of the command, like L for line or C for circle. Now there's a file that's known as the PGP file that you can edit to change these aliases. It's a simple text file that follows a set pattern for it to function properly. To get to it, you need to go to your Manage tab in the ribbon. Then go to the Customization panel right here, and then click on the Edit Aliases button. If you scroll through this list here, after all these semicolons, you can see all of the different keyboard shortcuts that are in here for you. and it starts right about here. A lot of the other text that you'll see up here at the top that I've just scrolled through quickly just discuss kind of what's been going on. And this is updated for every release of AutoCAD. And you can see here if you want to change any of these is to just type in your shortcut followed by a comma, just space over until you get to this lines up in this nice column, type in an asterisk, and then the command that you want a shortcut for. Now you can edit any of these if you'd like to, like 3A for 3D array. I can change these right here if I want. I recommend that you don't change anything here. Keep the list intact for now until you learn AutoCAD and become more familiar with it. As you can see, the list is very long and there are a lot of them here. I've known a lot of people have actually printed this out and studied it until they've gotten used to it. Some of them have even made just a shorter list of the commands that they're going to use. If you are going to edit this, scroll all the way down to the bottom and put all of your custom commands down here. I suggest though that you probably limit the amount of the changes you've made here, because I think you're going to find that most of them aren't going to need to be changed. That a lot of them are going to work just fine for you the way they are. Once you're done, click Don't Save if you don't want to save it, or you'll have to click Save to save it. But for right now, I suggest you just leave it alone, but I wanted to show you where that file was so that you could actually look at it and get an idea yourself of what the keyboard shortcuts are. Maybe take some time to look through it and say, okay, yeah, now I kind of get the idea of what they are. And that might help you out to use them better on in the future. The user interface in AutoCAD is key to working efficiently. Now to help us out, AutoCAD has created Workspaces. A workspace is an organized group of interface tools. Now, out of the box, AutoCAD comes with 3 workspaces. Each one is slightly different from the other, and each one fills certain needs. If you come down here to the status bar, click on this arrow right here for the workspace settings. You'll see we have 3 main workspaces: drafting and annotation, 3D basics, and 3D modeling. Now to switch in between any of these, it's very simple. The one that's current has the check mark on it, and then the others, you just click on it to switch to it. Now in this video series, we're mainly going to use the main drafting and annotations workspace. We're not really going to get any 3D basics or any 3D modeling. To get to the one you want, you just click on it and it will load the user interface that you want. This little window here that may keep popping up on you is called the design feed. You can always turn it back on later, but for most of the time right now, for purposes of this video, I'm going to turn it off. Now there are some things that you can do to manage your workspaces, and you do that through your workspace setting buttons found down here. You have the Save Current As, you have Workspace Settings, Customize, and Display Workspace Label. Here you can arrange the way the available workspaces are displayed for you. So if I go to Workspace Settings, it will show the different workspaces that I have. If I don't want to see any of them, I can turn them off by here, clicking and clicking, and then click OK. So now when I come down to my workspace settings, that's the only one that is available to me. Now I can always click back at the settings and turn these back on if I want. I can adjust the order that I want. If I just select one and click Move Up, it'll move it up. Or select it, click Move Down, it'll move down. If I want a separator, I can click Add Separator and it will put the separator above where I currently have my little blue selection. When I'm finished, click OK. And now when I come down here, I can see this little separator line. So that's a nice thing to use if you customize your own workspaces and you make them all. Now, if you want to make your own workspace or just tweak one a little bit, go right ahead. In fact, it's probably a really good idea. But before you do that, I suggest that you make a new workspace and leave the default workspaces alone. This gives you a good backup just in case something bad happens, and it possibly could. And that way you won't mess up what comes out of the box. You will always have a fallback to go to that you know works. So to get started, all you'll need to do is click on the Save Current As. So this will save your current workspace as whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call this one Brian. That's my name. Click Save. So when you do that, it becomes the current workspace. So if I click on my button here, you can see I have one that's called Brian. It's current. I'm going to my workspace settings, and I'm going to put this one all the way up at the top. I'm going to select my separator. I'm going to move it up to the top. Now, one thing that you probably want to do is that once you set up your own custom workspace, you want to click on this button here, automatically save workspace changes. What that means is that as I tweak or customize my workspace, it will automatically save that into my current workspace. Now, there is a danger with this. The danger is that if I switch to one of these other workspaces and I make a change to it, it's going to override those settings. So be careful with that. Now, if you're afraid of messing anything up, that's okay. Just click on the Do Not Save Changes to Workspace and leave that on. You will have to keep in mind that anytime you change or tweak your user interface, you're going to have to save that manually. So whichever way works for you, then go right ahead and do that. So I'm going to click OK. I am going to press Control and 1 to turn on my Properties window because I want that there. And that's the way I want my workspace to go. So I'm going to click here. Click Save Current As, and I'm clicking this button here to see what I have available, and I want to resave it into Brian. Click Save, and it says, hey, this already exists. Do you want to replace it? Yes, I do. So now, if I switch to my regular drafting and annotations, you can see my design feed shows up here. My properties palette's gone. Everything else is this way. Well, that's okay. But if I switch back to Brian, it puts it back to the way I had it and the way I want it. So that's really good. So you can add toolbars, you can add menu bars, palettes, you can open anything up, and then you can save it. Many users will like to make custom workspaces that are task-oriented. That means that their ribbon tabs, panels, and things are set up for a specific task. So if they're doing some 3D modeling, they're going to put those in there. If they're doing just their drafting work, they'll have those tools there, but then maybe they want to annotate it with dimensions, things like that, and that's all the tools that they'll put in. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can turn your command line off or on. You can work with these customized workspaces all that you want. Create as many as you want, but make it so that it works for you so that it gets your job done more quickly. That's what's important. Now, you're going to find that having certain tools for specific tasks can make you more productive. But while you're learning to use AutoCAD, I recommend that you stick with the out-of-the-box workspaces for now. That's why I'm going to use the drafting and annotation workspace for the majority of this video. While working in AutoCAD, there are many things that you need to be aware of. The status bar is one of them. It's a sort of billboard that displays information. It's located here at the bottom of your screen, and it stretches all the way across, or most of it anyway. Now, starting on the left side here, you'll see different tabs for your model space and paper space for your current file that you have open. We'll talk about model space and paper space in another video, but that's what these tabs are. And you can also switch between model space and paper space by clicking on this button here. You can see there are a lot of different buttons. Most of them are grayed out, but the ones that are active are colored blue. This is the one here that displays the grid. Now you can press the F7 key to toggle that off and on, or you can click here on your status bar. This is the toggle to snap to grid. You can turn it on or off, or you can press the F9 key. Just like here you can press F7, here you can press F9. Now this little arrow here gives you some more settings. You can turn your grid snap on or off. You can turn on polar snap, whichever one that you want to use. You can also click it here and get to your snap settings. Next, you can see here that this is the restrict cursor orthogonally, or your ortho mode, which is F8. Now clicking it will toggle it off or on. Remember, if it's blue, it's on. If it's gray, it's off. This is your polar tracking. You can turn that off or on, and you can get to more settings here. Turn on different angles, or click here for the track settings to get to a more fine-tuning type of settings that you might want to use. This is for your ISO plane. You can turn those off or on. And here you can switch ISO plane top, bottom, or wherever it is that you want to go to. This is great for drawing 3D isometric drawings. They're still in the 2 dimensions, but they'll help you draw it accordingly. I'm going to toggle that back off. Next down here we have the object snap tracking. This is your F11 button. That will help you to automatically track to things that you can't necessarily follow. Turn off my ortho mode. Now this is going to let me track past this line through it, even though the line isn't there. You can also track to things like other midpoints, etc. We'll talk more about it in detail later on. Now this is your O-snap tracking. Press F3 to turn that off and on, or you can click down here. And this will get to your different settings. Which one of these running O-snaps do you want to have turned off or turned on? And of course at the bottom again, as you can see a theme here, this gets you to your detailed settings. This button here is your selection cycling. You can turn that off and on. This is for your dynamic UCS to turn it off or on. And this is for your annotation scaled objects. Again, all these we'll talk about more detail much later on. This is your workspace switching. This turns your annotation monitor off or on. Here we have hardware acceleration. So if your computer is running a little bit slow, or at least it seems like it, you may want to click here to turn that off or on. You can isolate objects by turning this off and on here. This is your clean screen setting for your Control 0 to turn that off or on. But here's something you really want to pay attention to, and that's your customization button. If you click that, this will customize everything that you may or may not want to see. So I can turn my clean screen option off or on if I want. I can turn on drawing units. And you can see as I toggle them off or on, it's in real time. So now I can get to these settings and I can change them accordingly. However you set this up, feel free to do so however you would want. But then once you have something turned on or turned off the way you want it, go right ahead and save it into your current workspace if you have a custom one. That's a great thing to do. If you click all the way up at the top, you can turn your coordinates off or on, which is very useful because it can tell you exactly where you're at. Once you're finished though, then you're finished. Now if you right click on any of these items, it will get you to some custom settings. You just click that option then and get right to it. You can get to specific, absolute, relative coordinates, etc. So that's your status bar. If you want to know if your grid is off or on, your O-snaps are on, your ortho mode is on, etc., you can find that here. Remember, the light blue means it's on, the gray means it's turned off. There are two drawing spaces in each AutoCAD file. They're called model space and paper space. Paper space was introduced to us way back in AutoCAD Release 11. AutoCAD 2015, which is what I'm using here as an example, is Release 29 of AutoCAD. So you can see paper space has been around a lot longer than it hasn't. So even though paper space has been around since around 1990 or so, it still causes trouble for many users today. Understanding the purposes of each drawing space is a fundamental need when creating drawings in AutoCAD. I want to keep it simple though. Model space is where your drawing objects go, and that's where you're going to do all of your lines, your circles, etc. Paper space is where your paper objects go. If you were to create a drawing with pencil and paper, you would start with a drawing border and a title block and then put your drawing inside it. That's the way it was done. AutoCAD works in reverse. You create your drawing objects first, or your model, that's what it is, and you do that in model space. Then when you're ready to make a drawing, you switch to paper space and add your drawing border and title block later on. Now, paper space is also where you want to put your annotation, especially if you're going to create multiple sheets in one file. Now, for every AutoCAD file, there can only be one model space tab, and it shows up by default. But you can have as many paper space tabs in your file as you need to or want. It's a good idea to limit them though. If you have to scroll through the paper space tabs to see them all, then you probably have too many. When you approach drawing in AutoCAD, think of your line work as data in a database. So I could have something as simple as a rectangle. This is a model. It's just a 2D object, but it's a model. And this is my data. Now, when I want to present it to people, I go to paper space and I go to my layout tabs, as they're often called. Here is where I make my drawing. I click inside a viewport and I can zoom in or out and I can show my model however I want to relative to the rest of my paper. That's the beauty of paper space. Here you want to annotate it, put in dimensions, notes, leaders, your title block, etc. Now, one of the biggest benefits to annotating in paper space is that you can create multiple viewports in one drawing. So if I select this viewport, I can edit it and change it, and I can also copy it, or just make a new one. And here I can show it really big and I can annotate it all I want. Here I can zoom out, show it relative to anything else that I would like, etc. And I can annotate it different ways all in the same time. But here, if I annotate something, it's going to show up in all of my views. You can kind of see it here. I need to really zoom in to see it a little bit better, but you kind of get the idea. I'm stuck with it. If I select it, you can see it shows up in each viewport. And so if I right click and hit erase, it erases that dimension everywhere. So I have to make sure I manage that properly. But if I dimension my objects here in Paperspace, I can put the same dimension on here, but I can show it in different ways, and I don't have to deal with it everywhere. We're going to go into a lot of detail in Paperspace and Model Space later on, but just keep in mind, and just keep it short and simple, your drawing goes into Model Space, your notes and text and title blocks go into Paperspace. When you work with AutoCAD, you will often find it useful to have more than one drawing file open at a time. And some of those drawings will have multiple drawing tabs or Paperspace tabs in them. Navigating that mess can be very difficult and sluggish. Now, how do you know which drawing you need or what tab you need or especially what file that you're in? Well, a very quick method of switching through open drawings is by pressing the Control and Tab key at the same time. That'll just toggle you through your open files. So that's a quick way that you can do no matter where you're at. If you press Control, Tab, and Shift, it'll toggle you through your open drawings in the opposite direction. And that's quick and easy to do. And it used to be the only way you could go through those. Also, you can press Control and Page Up to move backwards through your tabs or Control and Page Down to move forward through your tabs. This method is cumbersome and difficult, especially if you have many tabs open. Now, there are other tools that we've already seen in other videos that will help you to navigate through your drawings. And that is to just go through your file tabs. It's one reason why I tend to keep these on all the time. Whichever one you want, you just click on it and you can get to it. A lot of times even it's easier and more quick to do that than to press the Control Tab key. Now if you're in one file, you can get to your Paperspace tabs by clicking on these buttons down here on the left. To get to your Paperspace or Model Space tabs, you can use your File tabs. Just go up to the tab that you're on or that you want, find the Paperspace tab and click on it. It gives you a little thumbnail preview, and it will also allow you to do things like print. If I hover over one of these tabs, I can hover over the print button, looks like a little printer, and I can plot. If I hover over this one, this will open up my Publish Manager. We'll talk about those later on how to do either one of these. But this is a great way to quickly navigate through all of your open files.